I'm Belle Bear. This is Sacred Mechanics.
I'm talking quietly because I'm outside on my balcony and I was hoping to capture some of the sounds here, but it's suddenly gone a bit quiet, which is really interesting. I live right on the edge of a national park or the bush, which in North America or Europe you may call the woods. And it's surprisingly noisy in the mornings. There's a lot of really loud birds in Australia. And this year it's exceptionally hot and humid, more tropical vibe than normal. Not tropical in a good way, but tropical in a humid way. A lot of cicadas, and all sorts of things, which is keeping the bird life really active. I'm hoping that we capture a kookaburra or something like that soon, but as things go, you try and do something and make it happen, and then it's a Murphy's Law thing. You don't get the sounds. Anyway, why I wanted to talk about sound and birds is I really have an affinity with birds, and my magical sort of sign from my guides of the universe is feathers. It's always been about feathers and different birds, which is so cool because wherever I go, and I always feel connected. And there is such a magical resonance in birdsong. We are made of sound and light, basically, is our incredible energy. When I was living in Europe and North America, I found what I missed the most about home was the sounds, and I had to play bird sounds to sort of alleviate that feeling. And when I got home and moved back to Australia, it was such a treasured thing in the morning to be woken by our native birds. And I really appreciate it now, although I've been back 5 years. It's still wonderful to me. Anyway, I'm going to put this podcast in a few different parts because I can't do all of it outside here. I'm getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. I'll go back inside, and today I'm going to talk to you about the signs based on an old article I wrote for the Hudsucker a long time ago. I recently found it and read through it, and it reminded me of a few things. So that's what we'll do today. Okay, so let's talk about signs, learning to read the signs. Although, don't worry if after several years of being aware of signs, you still don't know how to decipher them. I still get unstuck after decades of asking for signs, and sometimes signs I have not asked for that appear. And I'm calling out to the skies, what does this all mean? This morning, for example, I've had 3 decent-sized spiders run in my path. We don't necessarily have many spiders in this house. It's a new home and it's white walls and pretty sparse. We have a few daddy long legs families living in the corners, but these are bigger spiders, like a baby huntsman, if you're familiar with huntsmen. You notice them. Anyway, I've had them this morning run across kitchen bench, run under my feet and under a rug in my bedroom, and just run across the wall in another room. So what I notice in that moment is that I need to write, because for me, the symbol of the spider is about writing. So I am a writer. I like to write, but not all the time. I find it a full mission in my lifestyle to sit down and write something. It takes a lot of effort for me, but once I get in the flow, I love it. Anyway, let's move on. That was a bit of a tangent. So Omens are persistent and they're mysterious, and sometimes they're really frustrating, and sometimes they lead us nowhere. So, learning to understand the signs you receive or asking for a little help when signs are just driving you crazy is a step in the right direction. You could never do too much research. I think that's why maybe it's one of the main reasons for the internet, I reckon, is um, what do caterpillars mean or lady beetles mean in spirituality? I love that stuff. Anyway, firstly, let's just define what a sign or omen might be. So, in general terms, it can be a repetition of events that would usually go unnoticed by you, but because of their timing, frequency, or unusual nature, you start connecting the dots and realize that the universe is trying to tell you something. Most of us have experienced this, and the more spiritually curious we are, and the more open we are to being able to see and navigating our way through the labyrinth of signs and omens, the better. Because there is a companionship in this. It's an easy way for spirit to communicate with us once we sort of get in the zone. And you can't exhaust spirit of giving signs. Sometimes you might feel like you're being super needy because you need like one every hour and you demanding it instantly, but it's cool. Spirit is always there. If you're a Mac user, it's a bit like the Hey Siri of the universe. Hey Siri, hey universe, show me a sign. For example, last night I was driving and the street lamp at the end of our street switched off as I drove under it. I love that. It used to happen all the time, and it's been a while since that happened. And I was like, that's cool. And then my other little voice is like, that was just a coincidence. So when I returned home on that trip, I was like, Spirit, please do something cool with that light again as I go under it to prove to me that was a sign and not just a random thing. And lo and behold, the light flicked on as I went under it. And I was like stoked. It was so cool. It just doesn't get old. I just love that stuff. There's some of us that live by the signs, a bit like a torch on a path in an otherwise completely dark environment where you're just seeing a few steps ahead of you. 1 foot at a time, you get through things. And if you feel you're in a situation or an emotional environment you're trying to navigate, that's okay. We know that getting through 1 step at a time is actually the only way, and to be present. And through this, signs can be a really cool device. I don't want to say the word crutch, but they can be sometimes. If you just need that bit of unseen hope, then it's totally beneficial for you. So it can become second nature in our decision-making process, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's okay to live by that and want positive signs of encouragement or signs to show that a move you're about to make is maybe not in your favor or, going to help you out on the grander plan that you're hoping to manifest for yourself in your life. So I believe there are 2 kinds of signs or omens. The first is the welcome kind, those little clues that our angels, spirits, guides, source energy, or whatever divine source we feel we're most connected to, or that who we're communicating with at the time gives us. These signs of love, support, companionship, and protection, and the basic yes or no's are fantastic and hopefully really frequent in our lives, especially if we're asking for them and they are delivered. And then in our darkest hour, these signs are that beacon that I just talked about, that torch in the light, and that we know that we're not alone and that we need to trust in the workings of the magical universe that we inhabit. Signs can be anything at all, by the way. It's sometimes best to choose a sign so spirit knows what to work with. I personally find this way most effective, and I sometimes really need specifics, and I say it out loud. Yeah, it'll go like this. Hey, Spirit, please tell me something in the next random song I choose. Or if I'm driving, I might say, show me 3 yellow cars in the next 3 minutes if the answer is yes. So it's kind of entertaining and fun, especially when you get 3 yellow cars in the next 3 minutes and yes was the answer you wanted. Signs can be anything, but if you are new to this concept, you may notice signs come in the form of feathers, pretty stones or rocks that catch your eye randomly, coins or other curious objects that seem to appear at your feet just at the moment when you're hoping for a message. And when you see that object, you just feel like it's out of place and it was meant for you. Or things like inspirations, and that need to just not feel alone in the moment is where signs are your best friend. And there's going to be things that show up in your own personal life that I can't list right now of what a common sign is, but you may see a lot of butterflies or dolphins, even if you live nowhere near the water, but you see a dolphin sticker in a window and then the cover of a dolphin book, and then someone talks about dolphins on the radio. You know what I mean? It's just noticing that repetition. And that's what really can get you on your way. So, of course, the spectrum of what qualifies as a sign to each of us as individuals is infinite. Different things light us up, and often certain objects hold a personal reminder from our own past or our own inner desires or what is in our sphere at that time or the subject matter of what we're needing signs about, whether it's relationship or home matters or children matters or our job or, new relationships, which I think we're pretty hungry for signs in that situation. I recall several years ago while I was working in a job I wasn't enjoying too much and training part-time to become an energy healer, I felt like I'd never achieved my dream of becoming a metaphysical professional. I'd specifically asked my spirit guides and angels to place feathers on my path by a certain time each day. This was very demanding and in hindsight ridiculous, but I was feeling alone and insecure about my own spirituality. So, but believe it or not, they were delivered. I kept most of the feathers, which are now central to the wand I use for ceremonies and space clearing, and they really mean a lot to me. The feathers are incredible and so special to me as a reminder of signs, really, and how we all need signs sometimes. And over the years to come, I know I'll continue the practice. And if it's the one thing you do to connect to spirit, it really is enough and it is fulfilling. I would say that it's the easiest go-to in our busy lives to help us look inward and look for answers that are materialized in the 3D world. So, yeah, really special. And just to draw upon another experience, which may help you reflect on your own lives and possible experiences with signs and omens too. I eventually started to realize I was creating a connection with birds for real. Like, I really knew after this particular experience I'm about to describe that birds were my thing. I would think of them and they'd appear. And still to this day, if I'm feeling uncertain about my path, I ask to see a bird for hope. And not just any bird, but sometimes something special to me at the time. And this is really powerful for me. And one really amazing experience was on the eve of immigrating to Canada, be nearly 10 years ago now. I was on the 22nd floor of a beachside hotel tower, and it was early evening, and we were sitting under a glorious full moon that was rising. And I was wondering if leaving Australia was the very best thing to do at the time. I was 40 years old. I had 3 young children with me, no possessions, no job, and just a little bit of money. And all of a sudden, my favorite species of bird landed on the balcony railing. These birds don't hang at the beach. And I was on the 22nd floor, which is kind of high, and you don't see these kinds of birds hanging out in high rises much. So this bird lands really close to me on the balcony railing, and it just looks me in the eye and we make contact. And then he just seems to leap off the balcony and drop like superhero drop, and then puts his wings out full span. And it was so purposeful what the bird did, and it just stunned me and was so amazing. And that was all I needed. It was a welcome sign filling me with hope and energy for the journey I was about to embark on with my family. So that will be special the rest of my life, absolutely. And I would love to hear if any of you out there have had similar, really powerful signs as well when you were at a crossroads in your life. I'd love to hear about that for sure. Okay, so you're saying, well, what's the second kind of sign, Willow? The second kind of sign is the one where the universe is trying to spell something out to us about a particular event, person, decision, or path. It is desperately trying to shake us and get our attention. And these signs, when they come up, are extremely frequent, and you start to notice them, and it's everywhere you go, and it's incessant. And they're not always easy to understand. These signs are often by repetition of words, images like insects, animals in your path, things falling off shelves as you walk by for no reason, or ideas as part of your usual routine, but suddenly things can literally jump out at you. And sometimes it's really interesting using modern media, even like the dialogue in a film or television or radio commercial that seems to be talking directly to you. Or in printed media, like, for example, you pass a newsstand and the headline strikes you and it stays in your mind just as you are thinking about doing something you're unsure of. The headline says, "Don't do it." So it's in plain black and white, and you're like, is this one for me? And the universe is like, yes, and here's another one. So you've got to listen. And sometimes we hear the same song over and over again, and not through our own selection, or people keep bringing up the same unusual topic with us, or we may get some spontaneous ideas that seem to be out of the blue but actually hold the key to a solution. Sometimes signs may appear in the form of numbers, double or triple digits, or your favorite number again and again. I mean, how often do you see 1111 on your digital clock, or on your speedo, or on your speedometer, on your car is what I mean, or on receipts, or at the petrol bowser, things like that at the pump. It's everywhere. I'm sure all of you that have chosen to listen to me today are like, yes, absolutely, the double digit thing is all over the place. And each combination of numbers can mean something different, like 555 means to me, absolutely, big change. Yep, 555 is a big deal. 1111 just feels like a real angel number, doesn't it? And then so does 444, which is a beautiful feeling number. Anyway, we've all got our favorites, absolutely, and they've all got their own special flavor, I think. Anyway, these kinds of signs are great because they make us feel engaged with the universe, and they can mostly leave us exasperated in another way, saying, why? What do you mean? What do you mean? Pink flamingo. I've seen this 50 times this week. I'm hoping you guys have experienced this as well, and it's not just me that obsesses about this sort of thing, but I'm using pink flamingo as a random example. The best long-term strategy for understanding these signs that we receive is to keep a journal, and then over time we can log sort of the patterns of what's being revealed to us and align certain sorts of symbols or words or signs with certain situations or aspects of our lives. And hopefully over that arc of time, it allows us to connect the dots and reflect on things in that way. And at the very least, we'll end up with a catalogue of signs and symbols, which is fun to reflect on as well. I often draw mine instead of write down all about it. And if I draw it and put a little note of where I was and when, that's enough for me to remember that moment, because some of them really are deeply ingrained and powerful moments. powerful moments of guidance, I should say, for us, not just any old moment. And, this is also strange coincidences or thinking about someone and then you see them, take note because you'll see that they do accumulate and our daily life really, truly is magical. And over the course of a year, you may find that you've got hundreds of these moments. And I think that's very special. Another great thing to include in your routine is meditation. And I know you've probably heard this 1,000,000 times, but meditation will have an incredible effect on your growth spiritually, not to mention emotionally, physically, and intellectually. It just is going to open the doors, let in some fresh air, let in some knowledge, let in some advice, messaging, guidance from source, spirit, creator, the universe, your guides, angels, all of them, anyone you like. Also, although that leads me to another subject of protecting your energy if you're going to open up like that. So stay tuned for that. But with meditation, we learn to silence our mind and hear our soul and our truth. And it is a practice. It's not like we become really quickly perfect at it. It's a lot of work, depending how we're wired as well. I really do struggle with it, but I do persist. And after 20 years of long seasons of trying to meditate just for a little while, I am just trying and not doing. Like, I'm not great at it. But when I do find patterns where I'm able to really do it well, my intuition improves exponentially. So, although I'm not perfect at it, I'm just sharing on a level playing field with you. Do work on it as well, and it will open up many doors and passageways in your subconscious and your conscious too. And if you're not going to do that, but you really want to clearly hear some answers, you could always go and get an energy healing or see a psychic or, someone with clairvoyant abilities. Extra clairvoyance is sort of good for me because I'm a really visual person and I am clairvoyant. But if I go see someone that is clairvoyant too, it's good because they can describe things in images, which I find really helpful. And of course, there's all sorts of other spiritual modalities to help us through. But you'll find that when you're talking to someone that's giving you guidance, that it's super helpful. Like, you can mention the pink flamingos to them, for example, and your healer's going to be like, no worries, and just give you that last piece of the puzzle. And then voila, you have everything that you needed to sort of close off on that journey and those signs for that particular situation. Anyway, I'll wrap it up there, and I really hope that that was helpful for you and got you thinking. Please message me. If you have any questions, you can find me on Instagram. I am also the creator of Sea Witch Tarot, the Sea Witch Tarot, and I'm Willow Whiteraven. Thank you so much, and I will be sending another episode out into the ether next week.
I'm Belle Bear. This is Sacred Mechanics.